What up? Yeah, I'm back. We back. Terrible, terrible news. The great debater, Charlie Kirk. Well, they got him, guys. The same way they tried to get Donald Trump and failed. Well, they got one of his good supporters. I remember at the convention, I think he was the one that opened up the convention. That Republican convention before the election, right after Donald Trump got shot, got attempted assassination. I remember him. He's a really good speaker. I also know him from going to these colleges and debating. He was a really good debater. So we're gonna watch a little bit of this, and I think I'm gonna pull up some of the clips of him debating. He'd go to colleges and debate with the students. You know, some people didn't like, some of the things he would say, but I actually agree with a lot of things that he, used to say in debate. And, he was a good speaker and a good debater. See, when we are in America, you got the freedom of speech, you got the freedom of your own opinion. As long as you ain't disrespecting nobody, it's good to have good, healthy conversations. And we have to understand how to respect other people's opinion. And, and these days and times, man, there's a lot of people, that's really on the edge for different type of reasons. And it just is what it is, the critical thinking, like I was talking about earlier. And as I'm talking about critical thinking, here goes another example. He actually passed away. So we're gonna catch up to date on what's going on. Rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. He put in the work. We always talk about putting in the work, and actually going to colleges, talking to kids, putting his feet on the ground. Whatever you like and don't like about what he stood for, he was talking to the kids, and trying to get them to think a certain type of way, and he would debate them on campus. And unfortunately, that's where this happened at one of those universities in Utah. So let's catch up to see what's going on. Appreciate y'all for joining me. I am your host, the one and only Stock Sniper. And I'm back, guys. Another tragedy. Just got through talking about one earlier, and I was heavy on critical thinking. And guess what? Here goes another one. So let's listen in, guys.
Is threatened. Now, we have a person of interest in custody. The investigation is ongoing. But I want to make it crystal clear right now to whoever did this, we will find you. We will try you. And we will hold you accountable to the furthest extent of the law. And I just want to remind people that we still have the death penalty here in the state of Utah. Our nation is broken. We've had political assassinations recently in Minnesota. We had an attempted assassination on the governor of Pennsylvania. And we had an attempted assassination on a presidential candidate and former president of the United States, and now current president of the United States. Nothing I say can unite us as a country. Nothing I can say right now can fix what is broken. Nothing I can say can bring back Charlie Kirk. Our hearts are broken. We mourn with his wife, his children, his family, his friends. We mourn as a nation. If anyone in the sound of my voice celebrated even a little bit at the news of this shooting, I would beg you to look in the mirror and to see if you can find a better angel in there somewhere. I don't care what his politics are. I care that he was an American. We desperately need our country. We desperately need leaders in our country. But more than the leaders, we just need every single person in this country to think about where we are and where we want to be. To ask ourselves, is this it? Is this what 250 years has wrought on us? I pray that that's not the case. I pray that those who hated what Charlie Kirk stood for will put down their social media and their pens and pray for his family, and that all of us will try to find a way to stop hating our fellow Americans. With that, we're happy to take a few questions.
The FBI director is posting that a suspect is in custody. I would just like clarification. Do you or do you not have a suspected shooter in custody?
We have a person of interest in custody that is being interviewed right now. We do.
That is not George Zinn.
That is not George Zinn. Okay. That is correct.
Are you still searching or looking for another shooter or anybody else related to this?
Yes, we are actively looking for anyone and everyone who has any possible information relating.
So the guy they picked up was not him. So the shooter is still loose, guys.
That information when we can.
Is there believed to be a second individual involved in the shooting?
At this point, there is no information that would lead us to believe that there is a second person involved.
Can you guys talk about the possible shooting?
Do you want to talk about what we know there?
Yeah. The only information we have on the suspect, the possible shooter, is taken from closed circuit TV here on campus. We do have that. We're analyzing it. But it is security camera footage, so you can kind of guess what the quality of that is. But we do know dressed in all dark clothing, but we don't have a much better description other than that.
Where do you think the shot came from?
The shot came from here on campus, from a location at a third, potentially from a roof. Yes, a longer distance shot from a roof.
So to clarify, with the security camera footage you have and the person of interest that's in custody.
You're just listening into that quickly here on Live Now from Fox. We do see an Arizona representative talking about Charlie Kirk, of course, Turning Point USA, headquartered in Phoenix. Let's listen into this here from Washington, D.C.
Look, this can't be what we've become, but it is. You know, I think about it, the pit in my stomach when Steve Scalise almost lost his life, when the president was shot at, when I've heard stories from members, which we try often not to publicize, who've been assaulted, had a bullet through their office windows. My own experiences, with my children in my arms. Okay, we're politicians. There's a certain risk, certain insanity that goes with doing this. But how about if you're just someone out there who's, yeah, you've built a very powerful, very successful organization, but you're also telling a story that is American. It's actually what made us. Go read the actual documents. Go watch the actual videos. And after that, if you have an opinion, it's your opinion. You're an American. You get to have your beliefs, but don't make it a belief based on ignorance. For everyone in my community, the Phoenix Scottsdale area, Charlie's home, please pray, extend kindness, because Anna, Doric, Erica, he's not coming home. Please, God, let's not make this what our future looks like. We got to be better than this. Because when the messenger that's ultimately a message of optimism and prosperity and morality and love takes your life, I come up here every week and talk about the economics and how terrified I am about the debt and deficits and demographics. Maybe I should be just terrified of what our future looks like when you have someone at 31 years old who's built a following just telling the truth. Mr. Speaker, I got to stop myself from rambling because I have 1,000 thoughts going through my head, and many of them are quite angry, and I promised myself I wasn't going to come up here and do a tirade. But let's make this a moment of reflection, and particularly for those who fill my text messages, fill my emails, fill my mailbox at home with hate. If you're on the left and you are full of burning hate, maybe it's now a good moment for some reflection of what you've brought to our society. Is this really what you are? Is this really what we are? Maybe actually do it, my challenge. Take my challenge up. Go actually watch. Go read what Charlie Kirk was actually trying to communicate. And actually you might find out it's not that foreign to where your hearts are at. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I give back.
All right, just listening in emotional testimony from David Schweikert, the Arizona representative, talking about Charlie Kirk and who he is. Of course, both there from Arizona, speaking about those connections. And this from the President, Donald Trump, saying, a truly great American patriot. I'm ordering all flags throughout the United States lowered to half-mast, as we're continuing to learn more about potentially the motivation of this person of interest now in custody in Orem, Utah. A live picture right there on the ground. We've had so many pictures coming in as the amount of law enforcement has dissipated significantly since that press conference from the governor. Let's be joined right now by friend of the program, national security analyst Hal Kemper. Hal, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Authorities say there is a person of interest in custody following this, what they're calling a political assassination. Why not call them the suspect? What's the difference?
Well, they don't have all the predicate to really call him a suspect at this time. Right now, that's a person of interest, probably somebody who matches the description or was doing something very suspicious. They brought him in.
There are people in prison in America. We do not have enough people in jail. We don't have enough people that are arrested on the side of the streets. That is a constant theme of this program. President Trump makes healthcare affordable again. His 2017 executive order expanded access to truly affordable group plans to all Americans. But Democrats and deep staters have done everything in their power to block it. But now there is a free market solution to Obamacare that was created in response to President Trump's executive order, and it's called Ease for Everyone. And it offers affordable healthcare for every budget starting as low as $59.97 a month. You can keep your doctor, never pay a deductible, and access over 400 prescription drugs for free. Call 888-EASE-123. That is 888-327-3123. 888-EASE-123. Visit easeforeveryone.com/Charlie and join today. That's easeforeveryone.com/Charlie. Joining us now is Megan Basham, author of Shepherds for Sale and Daily Wire culture reporter. Megan, I'm so glad to have you on here. You live in Charlotte, where the killing of Irina Zarutska occurred, who was an incredible person, a Ukrainian refugee, comes to America and was murdered in cold blood for no reason, a senseless killing. If a random white person simply walked up to and stabbed a nice, law-abiding black person for no reason, it would be an apocalyptically huge national story used to impose national sweeping political changes on the whole country. Instead, Megan Basham, no one seems to care when a white woman gets stabbed to her death. Why is that?
Yeah, that was pretty shocking to go, for 2 weeks now, none of our major media outlets have covered her at all, not one word. They finally started to cover her a little bit this morning, but only because of the massive public shaming, because this video was so very shocking. And what I really want to emphasize here, Charlie, is that this is not a dangerous part of town where Zarutska was killed. It's a very lovely, popular part of town, bustling restaurants, trendy restaurants, boutiques. My family and I go there frequently on the weekend. So this was an area where you will see families on the weekend. She's a young woman, 23 years old, a refugee, getting off work at a pizzeria and gets onto that light rail. So, you know, the initial reaction of our Democrat mayor was appalling. She said that she didn't mention Irina Zarutska at all in her initial statement. Instead, what she called for was compassion for the perpetrator, who she said is suffering from mental illness just like cancer or heart disease. So we're supposed to have empathy for him as some sort of victim. And she said that we
racial element here that a random black guy murdered a white woman. Is it shocking the community? Walk us through what's happening locally here, because I would imagine it should be.
Yeah, I think it is. You know, one of the things you're hearing is that this was a light rail that we all felt perfectly safe using just a few years ago, and we don't feel that way anymore. Because of these policies, you are suddenly seeing an increase in homelessness in the Charlotte area. You know, we came here in 2016, and when we first got here, you really didn't see panhandlers, public disturbances on the street. You see that now when you go into our uptown metro areas. And so I think so many people are feeling that. And when you look at the increasing rates of crime in Charlotte, you can trace it back to 2020. So our last homicide high was in 2020 when the Black Lives Matter riots were occurring on our streets. And the second high of homicide rates in Charlotte were now 2024. So we don't have it for 2025 yet, but for 2024, when they were up 25% from the year before, when these racial equity policies started taking effect. So yes, I think people are very much waking up to the fact that, you know, all of these sort of Black Lives Matter, DEI pushed policies are having a direct impact on our safety, because the argument was, for the sake of racial equity, we need to not jail Black offenders. We need to give them fines and probation. And look, Charlie, this guy's mother, DeCarlos Brown's own mother, tried to get him involuntarily committed. She has said he was not safe to be on the streets, and she actually tried to do something because she knew he was a threat. And instead, we have a criminal justice system here that was sold out to social justice instead of actual justice.
So now I want to transition to the Christian element here. So you have a great book, Shepherds for Sale. You've also called out all the wokeism stuff. Has Stephen Furtick, whatever his name is, spoken out against this? Because he was really big, Elevation Church, big BLM guy about George Floyd. Has Stephen Furtick, the popular megachurch pastor, has he spoken out against the black criminal who killed a white woman on a bus? Because he's in Charlotte.
You know, I haven't specifically checked on what Stephen Furtick has said, but it feels like if he did speak out, that would certainly be something making news in our area. And I have heard nothing about that. In fact, I have heard nothing from many of the
weird. That's strange.
Yes, from the social justice pastors who are very popular in this area. Derwin Gray is another. I have heard nothing from him. And so you have so many of these church leaders who got on board with Black Lives Matter. They got on board with these DEI policies. And now they have suddenly very much backed away from quote unquote political issues now that we're starting to see the fruit of what these policies have borne. And it is actually the innocent citizens of North Carolina who are bearing the brunt of these policies.
Why is it that pastors were so quick to talk about the drug overdose of George Floyd, but they won't talk about this?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious why. You know, at that time, there was a desire to curry favor with the progressive wing, to be winsome. And so that's why they really want to appeal to the, I would say, the elite class of our society. And when they look at the elite class, they see the New York Times, the Atlantic, CNN, and those are the people who they want plaudits and applause from. And so those are the people that they will go out and appeal to. And yet, when you see crimes like this, where this, you know, horrific stabbing of an innocent young woman who came here from a war-torn country, and it actually turns out she probably would have been safer in her war-torn country than in a large American city, they go very, very quiet because that is not appealing to that particular urban upper class professional that they want to appeal to. So suddenly, you know, we had so much politics from these people prior to Donald Trump's election in 2025, and now we hear nothing from them. Now it's let's not politicize the pulpit, even though, you know, this is a moment for pastors to speak into, because you have a community that is hurting, that is scared, and they want to know, you know, what are some of the answers to this kind of pain. And look, the Bible does have answers about justice. If a man like this had been incarcerated and punished as he should have been when he initially broke into people's houses, when he committed armed robbery, when he committed assault with a deadly weapon, then he wouldn't have been on the streets to commit these crimes. But they don't talk about those elements of biblical wisdom that tell us that the government exists to terrorize the unrighteous and the wicked, not to ensure that the innocent can be terrorized. And that's exactly what's happened in this situation.
So, Megan, you wrote this amazing book, Shepherds for Sale, all about how our pastors are selling themselves out to the highest bidder. On this racial issue, though, I know you've mentioned it. It's so frustrating because, again, we have a catalog of the current kind of Christian ruling class of what they did. Carl Lentz, who's obviously been disgraced. George Floyd should be alive. It's not acceptable to kill him, blah, blah, blah. Stephen Furtick. This is what Stephen Furtick said. He said, quote, he said, if you only post a simple prayer emoji and scroll on, we need to challenge the system and sickness that created and enabled the death of George Floyd. I am part of the problem, is what Stephen Furtick said. I mean, I could go through the list of just the nauseating Christian leaders, and what is it getting better, and how do we call out this from some of our Christian authorities?
You know, I don't know if I would say it's getting better. I haven't seen any of this leadership come out and say, you know what, we were wrong. And they were wrong, because what they did was accept false narratives that we had a policing system in our country that disfavored Black Americans. And that's simply not true. The data does not show that. And so they were backers of policies that have now made us more unsafe and have led to incidents like the death of Irina Zarutska. And so what I have found mostly is that no one's really coming out and repenting of that. They're just trying to sweep it all under the rug and pretend like it never happened. I mean, look, I want to be clear. The president of the largest Protestant denomination in the U.S., the Southern Baptist Convention, told Southern Baptists that they needed to use the phrase Black Lives Matter, that they needed to lend that support to a Marxist organization that was trying to dismantle police systems. So there has been, you know, a real cost to that. They were out marching with these people. And now we see what that ideology and that policy has brought. I mean, we can see it in Chicago. We can see it in D.C. prior to a couple of weeks ago. And we see it even in previously very safe cities like Charlotte, where the homicide rate has exploded. So as we look at this, you know, it's really frustrating to me to see some of these pastors trying to pretend like they weren't a part of that. In fact, what you're kind of seeing them do now is reposition themselves, and they're using more conservative language. I have seen that. I can give you the example of someone like that as former SBC president, Pastor J.D. Greer, who pastors a large church here in North Carolina. You know, he was very much a part of backing social justice and Black Lives Matter. And now he's suddenly using more conservative language, but he's not acknowledging the part that he played in that. And that's what I'm seeing again and again, is that, you know, I think they know that there's egg on their face. But because of that, what they're doing is just trying to, they're calling it the Great Rehab Tour. They're all going on their Great Rehab Tours to sort of pretend like, hey, we weren't a part of that. And you will not hear them talk about Black Lives Matter or social justice anymore, even though they were so instrumental in promoting that movement back in 2020.
I think you're right. And it shows that we've made a lot of progress, but we still have yet a lot of work to do. And so the Christian world, I know, is becoming more center-right. It's becoming better on this. Look, not every pastor has to comment on every issue. The reason why Stephen Furtick is necessary is that it's happened in his hometown.
Right.
And so he felt necessary to call out George Floyd in the streets of Minneapolis, but something that happened in his own city. And that is inescapably biblical. It says that your city matters, your nation matters, your hometown matters, and the welfare of such. Final thoughts, Megan Basham, author of Shepherds for Sale.
Well, yeah, and I really want to point out that when they did that, it didn't have no impact. They gave aid and comfort to a deceitful, destructive movement. And so those policies that came out of that deceitful, destructive movement are exactly what are making our cities unsafe right now. And that is why we are seeing things like young women being murdered on a light rail train just when they're trying to get off work and go about their business, because we dishonestly bought into something that was simply popular at the time. And that compromise comes with costs, and we're seeing that now.
Irina Zarutska would be alive. 14 times this guy was arrested. Felony larceny, aggravated assault with a weapon. Megan Basham. Email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to our podcast. That is the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. Alex Marlow is with us. Alex Marlow is the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, Breitbart.com. Alex, great to see you. The terrible news of Irina Zarutska getting stabbed in the neck and the silence from the media. I mean, you've done a great job of covering the media throughout the years. This was an intentional cover-up campaign by not covering this at all from the major media networks. Yet George Floyd dies. Everyone covers this relentlessly, tens of thousands of articles a day. Alex Marlow, your thoughts?
Yeah, Charlie, you couldn't have scripted this. I mean, it felt like this story was out of 15 years ago or something, that the media wasn't covering it after all of this purported hand-wringing that's been going on, that they've been really looking themselves in the mirror, see where they've gone wrong, why the media is the least trusted industry of any industry in America. And then they have the easiest opportunity ever to get a little bit of credibility just by writing up the biggest story in America. And they won't even write it. They won't put one column inch into it in the New York Times and the Washington Post. Completely ridiculous, but it's something that we all could have seen coming. And it just shows you what we discussed on your show like 5 days ago, Charlie. This is shaping up to be a law and order election. The next election, as of now, it's a long ways off. Law and order is the #1 topic. And you could see a guy been arrested 14 times, a Ukrainian refugee out of nowhere. There's no context for it at all. There's no provocation at all. There's video of it. This is the nightmare for the left so long as we get the word out. And that's why the media covered it up.
And yeah, talk more about this. So let's go a level deeper here, Alex, because how do these newsrooms operate? Because what we are articulating is a conspiracy. We are articulating a silence conspiracy of media networks that intentionally do not cover it. How does this work in practice? Is there a group chat where they say, no, we're not going to do it? Obviously, I think that's unlikely. But is it also that they just have a narrative that they're trying to accomplish, and they all know the goal? Because when you have a dozen outlets, MSNBC, New York Times, BBC, Wall Street Journal, ABC, CBS, NBC, boom, 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 boom. And they all technically have different owners and different editors and different reporters, and not one covers this story. What's going on here? How do they harmonize with such incredible efficiency?
Yeah, they're so coached up, and they've been coached up for decades on this. And you've been so kind to promote all my books lately. But my first book, Breaking the News, which I wrote about 4 years ago, I tracked this. It's all corporatism. It's all about that the corporate boardrooms of all these media companies are controlled by people who want Democrats elected. They see that they're the true oligarchs. You're Bernie Sanders talking about oligarchs. These are the real oligarchs. And the problem is you cover stories like this and it looks bad for the left because they want to talk about George Floyd where there's no element of racism that was involved at all. And they treat it like that was the biggest racial hate crime of all time, even though George Floyd was on drugs and was resisting arrest. So then you have an example like this where you see a black guy stabbing a white woman for no reason. How else could you view this other than as racism if we looked at the world through the lens of the establishment left? And so they know if they cover this clear example of racism, then that nullifies times 100 any of the George Floyd covers they've already done. So they can't cover it. They have to ignore it and hope it just goes away, because to cover it reveals that they've been lying to us the whole time, which they have been.
And so the incentive structure of the media is so broken, and we've been waiting for their collapse, and they're not quite collapsed, but they're definitely in a situation of decay, you could say. The right-wing world online has been largely covering this and has been kind of keeping it alive. Why did this become a bigger story just because of the video. What about the video was so animating? Because it was very interesting. I was in Japan and South Korea, and someone in Japan mentioned, "Hey, Charlie, you hear what happened to the Ukrainian girl in America?" I said, "Yeah, didn't that happen 2 weeks ago?" Because I actually saw the story when it originally happened. I said, "Ukrainian refugee." They said,
"What's up, guys? We got 1,000 people in the building. Y'all hit the like button for me, please. This is a touchy situation that happened today. Rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. He was a good debater, going to the schools. He had his own way, the things that he believed in. He didn't deserve to go out like that, though, guys. We got a poll going on. Was Charlie Kirk racist? 28% say yes, 72% says no. I think he was a pretty good debater. He had his own, way of thinking. Some of the things I agreed with, some of the things I didn't. But, he did go out there and try to put the work in. He didn't deserve to go out like that. Thank y'all for joining me in the chat. I know the chat going to be kind of wild. I can't read all the comments because it's going so fast. Appreciate y'all for joining me. Hit the like button. If you really want to make a comment, you want your comment to stand out, hit that super chat for me. And I read your comment right here live right now. So we got 1,000 people in the building. Appreciate y'all for joining me. I am your host, the one and only Stock Sniper. Rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. Let's go.
No, it just happened. And actually it didn't just happen. It happened 2 weeks ago. Just the video was just out there. Can we get the still image of this, though, just on screen? Alex Marlowe.
Yeah, so first of all, to your first point, I think it's really important to note that the incentive structure, you use the word incentive structure, these media companies all lose money. They all lose money. And that's why they stay in business, because they protect the corporate status quo. You take a company like ABC, which is part of ABC Disney. So the ABC News can lose money because they're protecting brands like the Disney brand, which can make a lot of money through theme parks and through movies and through streaming and stuff like that. So ABC exists to cover for the Disney brand. NBC, Comcast, Universal. NBC News loses money. NBC News is designed to keep the NBC, Comcast, Universal, that entire structure afloat. And if you look at their board, it's all top Democrat donors and people who are fat and happy living off of America's largesse. And those are the type of people who are being protected by these newsrooms. That's why they don't do stuff like report on China accurately, because there's no incentive to, because their corporations all make money off of China. You look at New York Times' boardroom, it's all people who are AIG and Facebook and all these executives from all these other major corporations. And once you see that, then you understand what they're choosing to cover and what they're not choosing to cover. So, but to your point about the video shows the innocence of it. This is public transportation, small white blonde girl, and a black guy who's in a rage out of nowhere, no provocation at all, no interaction at all. The clear nature of, I'm seeing this person, I'm taking out all of the rage I've ever had in my life on her like that. And that it's unequivocal because of the video evidence. There's no way to spin it. There's no way to act like there's any sort of a justification or explanation for it. And that does make it all the more powerful.
Vivek, this attack in North Carolina was obviously preventable. There's a racial component to this as well, which is a black criminal which assaults and stabs a white woman to death, and the media wouldn't be bothered. When George Floyd on the side of the street in Minneapolis, everyone decided this was the most important thing since Pearl Harbor. Vivek Ramaswamy, you're running for governor of Ohio. What are your thoughts of this situation and more broadly the crime issue in America?
Yeah, look, I mean, what happened in Charlotte's unconscionable, but at the same time, we wouldn't be talking about it here if it were just a one-off. This is part of a national pattern. You look at my hometown of Cincinnati, look at the incidents of just a few weeks ago, which share some of the same dimensions you just described, Charlie. You look at what's happening in places like New York City, where I am with Senator Scott today, to LA. This is something that represents a broader breakdown of respect for the rule of law in the country. And, you know, in this broader conversation about who are we as Americans, that's a core part of who we are as Americans, is we believe in the rule of law. That's part of what founded this country, and the degradation of the respect for the rule of law, I think, is almost even more frightening than any one individual incident. And that's what we're going to have to turn around. frankly, Ohio, where I'm looking to govern, we're a state of cities. You got Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus, Toledo, Akron, Youngstown. It's sad to watch the cities in the heartland of the country to our coasts go down the tubes. But the good news is we know how to solve the problem. You were talking about some of it. Bring back actually sentencing standards that reflect the standards of the crimes. Bail should not be granted to somebody who is a repeat offender with ease and with, smooth as water now for many of these people to get back out. Juvenile crime is a major issue after the COVID school closures. Deal with the juvenile courts, even for people who are older juveniles, in ways that actually recognize violent offenders and even would-be criminals for what they are. Common sense, but what we're missing is leaders with the spine to see it through. That's a big part of why I'm running in Ohio. We're going to get it done in Ohio. And frankly, if places like New York or otherwise fail, we need bastions like Ohio, like Florida, like it's been in the past, for people to actually pack their bags and move. And that's what we're creating.
Senator Rick Scott from Florida is with us. Senator Scott, what is your take on this situation? And I do want to talk about New York here, but what can the U.S. acting as if the U.S. Senate's going to do anything, unfortunately, is laughable because, not you, but your colleagues are quite lazy. But theoretically, what could the U.S. Senate do to prevent repeat offenders like this from prowling our streets?
Well, first off, your heart goes out to this lady's family. You just can imagine, you're sitting on a train, all right, and then all of a sudden some guy starts stabbing you and killing you. If you think, Charlie, this bothers me so much. The biggest thing you can do, and I have 2 daughters, I have 7 grandkids, is you can't imagine anybody in your family in that situation. So what we've got to do at every level of government, whatever we can do at the federal level, whatever we can do at the state level, whatever we can do at the local level, we have to enforce our laws. We've got to put criminals in prison. They need to serve their entire sentence, right? We cannot be soft on crime. I want my family to be safe. I want your family to be safe and the next family to be safe. So what can the citizen do is for federal crimes, right? For federal crimes, make sure the sentences are stiff and people serve their time. On top of that, we need to help our local law enforcement every way we can. I'm very appreciative of what the president has done in D.C. What this guy's done, D.C. is a place where I didn't want to walk around. Nobody wanted to walk around in D.C. It's not safe to walk around in D.C. What he's done in D.C. is he's made it a place that you can walk around now. There's way more people outside now walking around in D.C. than there was before the president brought in the National Guard. But every mayor, every governor, and we've got to all say, this is the most important thing we ought to be doing right now. Keep people alive, keep people safe.
So you would say this is a gun violence issue, not a political rhetoric issue?
What is a gun violence issue?
The political assassination that we saw in Minnesota, the political assassination that we saw today in Utah with Charlie Kirk?
Well, there were also young people who were shot today in Colorado. I don't know if you're aware of that, but there were high school students who were injured by gun violence. So we have a major problem with gun violence in the country. America's in a class by itself in terms of the modern industrialized world. But we have rates of gun violence that are 10 or 20 times higher than Canada, the European Union, Mexico, what have you. So that's something concrete that we can do to try to turn this nightmare around. Obviously, I don't want people engaging in political violence of any kind, whether it's with guns or knives or
Colorado that we were just saying right now.
The whole point of having a social contract is that we resolve our conflicts non-violently through the political process.
Some Republican members of Congress have blamed Democrats at this point and the rhetoric from the left as a result for this shooting. Do you think that rings true at all?
Well, first of all, I haven't seen any reports about who the shooter was or who the killer was, and I think it doesn't help a very difficult situation for people to be blaming violence like this on political parties or political factions. I certainly resisted that when I heard people doing that after the Minnesota killings or after Paul Pelosi was attacked. And, there's no reason for us to get into that. The violence against political leaders is unacceptable in a free democratic society, and it is a threat to democracy.
I wanted to talk to him and made my way over to where I thought the line was, which is maybe directly, I would say 50 to 100 feet to the right of Charlie Kirk. I guess, at his 3 o'clock. It was only a few minutes. Like the first question had just finished. It was kind of a longer question, so they had maybe done that for 10 or so minutes. And they had just gotten into the second question, I believe. And that's when I heard like a huge pop. Whenever I hear sounds like that, at first I think, okay, maybe it's just fireworks. But after a few seconds, all of us kind of standing together, it's a very suspicious sound to hear with tons of people. There were so many people there. And there was, I guess, like a cement pillar or wall kind of right behind me. So as this suspicious sound has just gone off, I kind of put myself behind the wall. It was very, very good cover in case anything was happening. And then my brain was processing. It's a very loud sound. It seemed to me to come, in my mind, it came directly from the center of the crowd. I don't know where it came from, but that's just what my mind, I guess, was thinking. And then that's when, after a few seconds, people started saying, like, "Oh my goodness, Charlie was shot. I saw him fall to the ground." And that's when I realized this is a serious situation. We all crouched down. We have great cover, but I was then just listening for more shots because obviously this could become a much worse tragedy than it already was. And there were no more shots coming. We were maybe 30 seconds passes, and that's when people start yelling, "Run." There was a door maybe 10 feet away from me. I had to lose my cover to get to the door, but it seemed like the best option. So crouch down and just go with the people.
Yeah.
As soon as I got through the door, I ran as fast as I could, I guess, and as far as I could.
Now, Jordan, I'm glad you're all right to tell us about this. From all accounts, the atmosphere was, pretty pleasant, right? Pretty chilled. People were into it. They were listening to their speaker. I'm wondering, you said security detail. You passed a security detail. Others have told us there was no security. So describe for us what it was like to get into this. I guess it's a quad there at the school.
Yeah, it's like a courtyard. There was definitely security. I mean, I'm not an expert on security, but they had the guys with the little curly wire coming out. So I assume that those were security detail. It was definitely there.
But no metal detectors.
No, there were no metal detectors. There was no checking anything. And in fact, I've been in not a shooting situation, but other dangerous situations before. And so I'm often thinking about these things. I did think, anyone in here could have a gun. No one checked me. So I was, it's just a thought that came through my head.
Yeah,
so it's very tragic.
Kind of a haunting image there. All right. Well, Jordan Last, thank you for sharing with us what you saw and what you did in those terrifying moments. She was at the event right now. She saw the attack. She's on the phone. Raydon, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. If you could tell us where you were, what you saw, what happened.
Yeah, so I was clear up at the front. So they had the tent set up for where Charlie was going to be. And then they had the cattle grade set up with a little walkway for the people that were going to debate him. And then I was the grate right behind it. So I was right by the walkway. So I was right up front.
And then what happened when the actual shot was fired? Where were you? What did you see or hear?
So I was. He was just talking to the second debater, and ironically, it was about the transgender shooter, and they're talking about not allowing them to purchase firearms, and he was talking back and forth with the guy, and then all of a sudden I hear. Up top, I see Charlie. I think it got his carotid. I just saw him grab. It looked like his neck, and there's just blood pouring out everywhere, and his eyes kind of rolled back. And at that point, I kind of looked up because it sounded like it came up from behind me up the hill. And it was just one pop. And then we all dropped to the ground. And then they told us all to run. So we all ran out.
Yeah, I'm imagining pandemonium at that point. Did you see medical personnel attend to him, and what happened after that?
By the time I looked up, he was already off. He was already out. He was already out of the tent. There were some police officers up there. There was his security. There was no metal detectors or anything for us to go through. They didn't even check our tickets.
What about the gunman? Any sense of what became of the person? I don't know if it's a man or woman. The person who fired the shot?
Nope, I didn't see anything. I just dropped when everybody else dropped, and then I ran when they told everybody to run.
So you described it as a debate that was going on. So it was a debate between Charlie and someone else, or just a sort of
so he does prove me wrong. And basically, because he's a right-winger, and, he's very, very, very good at his debates. And he invites mostly college kids to go up and debate him. And, a lot of them were, had a lot of the same views, but there was something that may be a little bit off that they don't quite agree with. So they're just trying to, debate him back and forth on their views versus his.
So it sounds like people from all points on the political spectrum. What about the atmosphere, the mood? What was it like leading up to that?
Oh, man, we were all having fun. We were shouting, USA and Charlie Kirk and listening to some, 80s music like Queen and that, and just stuff to pump you up. We're just all having a good time.
Yeah, like a festival kind of atmosphere. I want to ask you about security. What was that like as you entered this area? And what kind of area is this?
There was none. It was like, so when you walked in there, it was like a kind of in the crevice of the buildings with a bridge across it. And then behind it was like a grassy open area with a little bit of sitting that's kind of in a stadium seating. But it was like a little hill.
And this is on the campus of Utah Valley University.
Yeah.
Are you a student there, or do you have an affiliation with the university?
No, I'm old. I'm in my 50s, so a lot of these people were college-age students, but there was quite a few, actually, I would say, that were around my age, too.
Yeah. And where did you get out? You ran out of there. Where'd you go, and what did everybody else do who was with you?
We all just ran to our vehicles, and I don't know where everybody's scattered. I don't know if, some of them were students that, had to catch a bus or whatever. But the ones that have cars, we all ran to our cars. I mean, I parked a little ways away, so it was a little bit of a trek, but it was fine.
But again, interesting, as you point out, no security, open area right there at Utah Valley University. Right on, Dasheen, I really appreciate your insight and your telling us your story. We thank you for that.
And we have new information into our CBS News 24/7 newsroom, an interview with a man who was at the event and spoke to Charlie Kirk just before the shooting. Let's take a listen.
But after I got done talking to him, I really couldn't exit because there's such a big crowd. So I turned around, and like 10 to 20 seconds later, after I got done talking to Charlie, I saw that he was shot in the neck and that he was squirting blood everywhere. But I was piecing things together, and it was really weird because the second guest that I talked to, before I went and asked him the question, what I was going to ask him, he was talking to him about how he was going to ask about transgenderism or something like that. But nothing about shootings. And this is the irony that came to me, which was like, right when he asked that, not like 5-10 seconds later, he was shot. And not only that, right after that, someone confessed to it who had no weapon, which makes me think that it was clearly a setup and that multiple people were involved. So, but prior to that, that's all I saw because everyone was squirming.
Did you see anybody fire a shot?
I didn't see anyone fire a shot. I think it had to come from an elevated position for sure. And I think it had to have been a long rifle based off of how, so Charlie was like 10 yards in front of me from where my microphone was. So even if you have a pistol, if someone was talking about a pistol and all this stuff and shoot.
All right, that was an interview from an eyewitness there who had just spoken to Kirk right before he had been shot. So obviously new information coming in.
We want to bring you the words of another eyewitness on the phone right now, Taylor Dufour. He was at the event with his wife. Taylor, what did you see? What did you hear? And where are you now?
I'm not in our vehicle. We're still in the parking lot. We can't get out now. We were about 30 feet to the side of him, actually almost directly in line of the shot. is what it looks like from looking at videos. Everything was great. The conversation was not heated or anything. And then, yeah, next thing you know, we heard one shot fired, and everybody just dropped down and kind of started to go into panic mode. So my first thought was get my wife to the ground and lay on top of her and help those around us if they needed.
I can imagine just pandemonium, panic, and so forth. Did you see what happened to Charlie as he got shot and went down?
I actually didn't see it actually happen, but I did look over as he was still in his chair falling. I could see a lot of blood coming out of his neck.
EMS rushing to the scene?
Yeah. I mean, the police, everybody, that works in that industry, they were great. They got right to work, and we appreciate all those.
What was going through your mind? You said 1 second they were debating politics in a civilized way, and then this. What were you thinking as this was happening?
We actually, me and my wife have talked about that. It's such a great group of people that come together to listen to him, the joy and the happiness he brings to people, and the things that he talks about. And on the way there, we were talking about how cool it is that he doesn't have to live in the fear of having bulletproof glass around him and everything, because the people are so great that surround those events.
And how are you feeling right now? What's your main thought?
I'm actually upset. I'm sad that anybody could hate someone this bad, and that's such a great people coming together regardless of political views. It's we're all coming together to build America up, make America a better place. And then we have this, like how somebody can hate somebody so bad. It sucks.
Yeah, I'll let that be the last word.
There were so many women and children here in the crowd that were just devastated and running scared, and we were just, and you can't help everyone. It's scary.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. Mr. Dufour, thank you for your observations, your insight, and talking with us. We really appreciate that. It is just after 5. Young Republican voters. Kirk was shot in the neck earlier this afternoon. The suspect is still at large. Police say a search is underway. Utah Valley University police say they are going building to building right now to try to evacuate people who are still there. President Trump posted
the suspect is still loose. That guy that they picked up was a person of interest, but the suspect is still loose. Let me get back over here where I need to be. Right.
posted about Kirk on Truth Social. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Those words from President Trump. Let's go now to our CBS News national security contributor, Samantha Vinograd. And Sam, the talk about the security detail, he had some people around him, but no metal detectors, nothing like that. That's something that's most certainly going to be looked at going forward.
Well, Maurice, this is just a devastating development, and certainly there will be an after action of what security protocols could have been in place to try to prevent this horrific incident. But right now, there's certainly a heavy focus on how to apprehend whomever was responsible for this terrible incident. We don't yet know if law enforcement authorities have actually identified a suspect, if they've been able to ascertain whom in the crowd was responsible for shooting Charlie Kirk. So the first order of business is certainly to identify.
Whoever did this, guys, it was a professional hit for sure. That was a professional hit.
Once they do identify who was responsible for this incident, they will certainly be working to locate the individuals. through warrants at the individual's property, reviewing their social media, talking to friends and family, and then, if necessary, employing a range of federal, state, and local law enforcement assets to try to track the individual if that individual is at large. What we don't yet know is whether there still is an ongoing threat to the public. If a suspect has not been identified and has not been apprehended, Maurice, that may in fact be the case.
Sam, anything from the video we have seen, anything tell you or give you any clue as to the distance of the shooter? Because initially the local authorities there thought they had him, or whoever it was, from some 200 feet away, I believe it was. I looked at it, untrained eye, I thought it was maybe from close range. What do you make of it?
I think it's a little hard to tell. It certainly doesn't look like the individual was in the first few rows in the crowd that you're seeing on your monitor right now. And various witnesses have indicated that it sounded like it was more of a rifle rather than a pistol. But I would imagine that law enforcement, federal, state, and local, again, the FBI and other parts of the federal government are likely involved at this point, are likely reviewing video from the event itself and trying to ascertain where the shot came from. There's advanced technology that they can use to trace the path of the bullet that fatally struck Mr. Kirk, and then from there to try to capture footage to identify the suspect.
Okay, Sam Vinograd, thank you for that. Our senior White House and political correspondent, Ed O'Keefe, joins us now. Reaction is pouring in from across the spectrum, Ed.
It is, Maurice, and importantly, it's pouring in from across both political parties. Obviously, the president, the vice president, others in the Trump administration, from the moment the reports first surfaced, asking for prayers and now recalling their late friend and fellow conservative activist and leader. But we've also notably seen Democrats. We heard Chris Van Cleve there mention the governor of Arizona, Katie Hobbs. California Governor Gavin Newsom was one of the...
What they're saying now, guys, that a second suspect is now a person of interest. This is allegedly. They're saying that it's supposed to be a transgender. The second person that they just picked up, allegedly, is transgender. But we got to make sure that everything's correct. But I gotta say it how I'm getting it. Allegedly, a second person has been arrested. Person of interest. Allegedly, this person is supposed to be a transgender.
Effectively engaged and galvanized younger, more digitally focused voters to their side. And the Democratic Party ever since has been trying to sort out how to do it. Well, Kirk was one of those that had been doing it for several years. And Newsom, in that case, at least wanted to get to know him. And they had a rather meaty and respectful dialogue about their differences, which is what Kirk was trying to do today here in Utah. We also heard from the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries. Political violence is never acceptable. My thoughts and prayers are with Charlie Kirk and his family. And then Gabby Giffords, of course, the congresswoman who survived an assassination attempt, had said she was horrified, and political disagreements are always allowed, but we must never allow America to become a country that confronts those disagreements with violence. There was a short time ago, Maurice, a moment of silence held on the floor of the House of Representatives. Speaker Johnson asked colleagues to rise and do so. Sounds like there may have been some in the chamber, unclear who and where, who tried to interrupt that silence. I don't know if we can play this.
Prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family.
So that was earlier in the House chamber. Speaker Johnson very quickly ran there to draw attention to it and have members of both parties stand there, at least momentarily, in honor of Kirk. This was before word officially came that he had died. So it shows you very quickly how quickly he galvanized people on both sides of the aisle to speak out, not only to denounce the violence, but to acknowledge the influence that Charlie Kirk had.
Okay, Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much. Let's go to Justice correspondent Scott McFarland now. Scott, first we were told they have a suspect, and now we're told they had the wrong guy.
Yeah, we've been blanketing our FBI contacts with questions about this over the last few minutes because there is a lack of clarity over what is the status of any manhunt for whoever pulled the trigger.
Yeah, Mario, I seen that video too. Real gruesome video, guys. Yeah, it's real gruesome. That video, horrible.
No updates on whether they are pursuing somebody, have somebody, or if somebody is even alive who's involved with this shooting. The Utah Valley University police are helping to respond to this, the local police. And we know, according to folks at the university who've spoken with CBS News, they're going door to door now on campus to help evacuate anybody who's there. They want everybody off this campus. And if you are doing a door-to-door evacuation, if you are offering to come get people and walk them off the campus, that's indicative of a kinetic threat, of something that is not fully settled at this point. But we're going to keep tapping into FBI sources here to get some a sense of what's going on. But I'll tell you, it is unorthodox now. We are 2 hours and about 20 minutes since this shooting, and we do not have an update from law enforcement if they have somebody either in their sights or in handcuffs.
Door to door, Scott, that suggests a dicey situation there at Utah Valley University. We'll keep an eye on that for sure. Right now, former Republican National Committee Chair Michael Whatley joins us. Mr. Whatley, you knew Charlie Kirk. Our condolences for sure. What can you tell us about him, and what are your thoughts right now?
Well, my thoughts are with his family, and obviously, want to offer our prayers for me and Suzanne both. Charlie was a friend. Charlie was a father. Charlie was a husband. Charlie, every time that I met him, he had a very intense smile on his face. He was a happy warrior. And he's a guy who fought for what he believed in. And he believed in America, and he believed in his family. And I think this is going to leave a big hole in America, really. That when we see this kind of a senseless tragedy, we cannot allow this to take place in America anymore. We really need to do everything we can to kind of prevent these political fights from escalating to violence like this.
Can we talk about that a little bit, sir? Because, everybody's wondering now, what happened? How do we get to this point where now this is almost... I don't want to say not surprising, but not expected, but people are still sort of reacting like I knew something like this would happen. How did we get here?
Well, it's absolutely tragic, is what it is. I think that when we think about President Trump being shot earlier this summer, 2 different attempts on his life, and it's really easy, in the moment to say it's the other side. But the fact is that there is no place in America for this type of political violence whatsoever. The fact is that a husband and a father has been taken from us way too early in his life.
A little more about what type of father and husband and man Charlie Kirk was. Hard to believe we're talking about him in the past tense right now, but someone who was a provocateur, who did it with a certain amount of joy, right?
Well, look, I think that he approached every day with a certain amount of joy, and it was great to be able to work with him, to do events with him, to spend time with him. He was a very intense, very loyal person. He was very demanding, but in a good way. And I think that he brought a passion to politics. He brought a passion to what he did with Turning Point. I think that's unbelievably commendable. And like I said, it will be a big hole in certainly my world and everybody else's world that had a chance to know Charlie.
Okay, thank you so much, former RNC Chair Michael Whatley. We appreciate your remembrances there. Reaction coming in from Governor Wes Moore, Democrat of Maryland, condemned in strongest possible terms the attack. You see this kind of reaction from Republicans as well. Tom Tillis, a senator, praying for Charlie Kirk. Political violence has no place in our society. So I bring in our chief Washington analyst, Robert Costa. You're hearing the condemnations far and wide, yet here we are once again, Bob.
Here we are once again, the specter of violence continuing to hover over the United States and our political culture. You see leaders in both parties expressing horror at what is unfolding here on a college campus today, a time when so many students are going back to school, starting their classes in September. It's the carnage of violence at a political leader. And this country has seen it many times before. You think about President Lincoln. You think about the shots fired on President Reagan. Of course, President Kennedy being gunned down in 1963, and other political figures have been shot. You think about George Wallace running for president being shot. He survived. Charlie Kirk, at such a young age, being gunned down, assassinated at a political event. This is something that is bracing for so many of the people we cover. Yes, there is a political debate that's often very testy in this country, but so often behind the scenes, most people I cover see the dignity in the other person across the way. Violence is not part of the American system. It's something that has scarred America's history, but it's not part of how we have dialogue. And Charlie Kirk, whether you are a defender of his, an advocate, an ally, a friend, or a critic, he is someone who was in the arena. And so many people, whether they're activists like Charlie Kirk, who are media figures, or they're political figures and leaders who are in elected office, they believe that by going in the arena, they may be bruised ideologically, they may be bruised when it comes to their rhetoric, but they won't necessarily have to face this sort of violence. But we've seen the attempted assassination of lawmakers like Steve Scalise within the past decade or so. Of course, President Trump facing his own assassination attempts, Gabby Giffords, the former member of Congress. Both parties have dealt with this, and now today, a real rising star dead at such a young age.
Yeah, for sure, Bob. And what it means for our politics going forward, that will be chewed over as we move forward here. To recap for you, the conservative activist Charlie Kirk has died after being shot in the neck during an event at Utah Valley University. A search for the suspect is underway, and a motive is still unknown. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news, and tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Maurice Dubois.
And I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to wait until AP was coming out. I was just in complete shock, and it's truly devastating, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it's so horrible. And, you know, this is an event where he goes to different college campuses and will freely talk to people that don't agree with him, and just really trying to find some sort of common ground when it comes to this crazy world of politics. And for this to happen where you can't even say what's on your mind, it's really disheartening.
It is, and I really hope that this is a turning point in our nation's history. Charlie Kirk was, you know, just a thought leader in today's conservative movement, and he was somebody who encouraged us to disagree at times, have healthy debates. He was such a kind soul. He was a man of faith, a man of God, and really lived and died by the sword, per se. And so it's quite devastating. And I really hope that everyone in the conservative movement, the tens of thousands of people that have rallied behind him, that have been awakened and emboldened because of Turning Point USA, continues this message, because it is so important. It goes beyond politics. It is about faith. And I pray that we have a spiritual revival in this country.
And what was Charlie like when the camera wasn't on, when the microphone wasn't there? What was he like just in passing, getting to know him?
Well, I think why so many individuals loved him is because he's so relatable, and he's so genuine, he's authentic, and he's a great family man. And that's why so many people loved him, is just because they could relate to him. It wasn't just another talking head who was saying one thing and doing another behind closed doors. He was openly advocating for strong family values, and was very principled. His work ethic was unmatched. A lot of the Turning Point family will say the same about that. Charlie and his work were very cohesive. We're basically one. And so he saw his work family as his real family as well. And that's why he just touched so many lives. And so, I mean, I got the privilege of going to Arizona for their wedding reception for him and to celebrate him and Erica. Months prior to that, I watched the 2020 presidential election unfold from the West Wing with him and his wife, Erica. And so I'm really glad I get to look back on those moments. I also look back on the moments when I was 19. I was first getting into politics. And the first thing that I did was start a Turning Point USA chapter on the University of Louisville's campus. The first thing I did was become a Turning Point USA ambassador and travel to some of those different events and connect with like-minded individuals. And so that just speaks a lot to Charlie, that I've, you know, a lot about my decision making moving forward, and the friends that I've been able to connect with along the way have everything to do with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. And that should be a testament to the kind of man that he is, able to connect like-minded people and really leave his legacy behind, not only in his two beautiful children and his beautiful wife, but in the tens of thousands of Americans that he's emboldened as well.
I think what so many people connected with Charlie and really gravitated towards him was the fact that he was able to say things that maybe you were thinking, but you couldn't really say it because you were in school or your work wouldn't allow it. But at the end of the day, you're like, oh my gosh, there's people like that are like-minded like me, and he's able to say it.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when I was 19 years old, it was such a sad time in our country. We were so divided with BLM and the riots breaking out. College campuses were wreaking havoc. That was just chaotic. And it was just a sad time in our country. And I remember standing firm in my beliefs and in my convictions and standing with our law enforcement officers back then. And I was getting ridiculed. I was being canceled. And I remember Charlie Kirk just making sure, checking in, making sure that I was standing strong through that. And even towards my White House journey, working for President Trump, he was one of the first people who called me, congratulated me. He called the White House, said, and put in a great word, which is so near and dear to my heart. I cannot thank him enough for that. And a lot of where I am today wouldn't have happened without Charlie Kirk and without this movement. And so I think we should remember that. And it's not just a testament to me and what I've accomplished, but just how many lives that he really has touched. And I'm sure there are countless other individuals right now posting and sharing the impact that he's had on their lives as well.
And Cameron, how does this momentum continue? How does TPUSA continue so that his message can continue to resonate? Who picks up that baton and continues this to the next levels?
Well, I think we've seen throughout history that they have tried to silence us, they have tried to scare us, they have tried to cancel us, and this is only going to do the opposite. This is going to embolden so many individuals to speaking about their beliefs, continuing this message of not just fighting for our country, but fighting to bring faith back into this country as well, because we need God right now. We truly need God. We need to dive into the scriptures, and we really just need a spiritual revival in this country, because I have seen so many instances and messages and posts about celebrating this time in history, and it is disgusting, and these people need to look in the mirror. And so I pray that they find Jesus. And I also just pray that we continue this messaging, that we not become fearful, that we actually become stronger for it, that we continue this fight, that we continue these messaging points, because Charlie had a lot to do with not just college campus reform and going to these college campuses and relating to younger people, but also winning us a presidential election. He was a key person in that as well. And we cannot forget the impact that he's had on our individual lives and this nation as a whole. So I hope that this emboldens people to go out and to speak their mind. Don't be fearful. Don't be confused, because there's a lot more of us than people would think.
Yeah, Cameron, I think you're so on it when you say that there's so many people lost in this country, when you're thinking about, okay, you're putting people in a box by saying, okay, they're just a Democrat or they're just a Republican, but we're forgetting about human decency, about these people are human beings at the end of the day. They have families that they have to go home to. And now Charlie doesn't able to do that.
Yeah, he will never be able to walk his daughter down the aisle. I don't even think his children are at the age to really remember him. I know that there will be some videos, probably I've seen some that Erica has posted, fortunately, of their family that they can look back on. But this is so devastating. And right now, it's really the time to come together. This is not a time to be divided. This was obviously politically motivated. Obviously, we're still waiting on details to come out. Fortunately, I have kept up with the FBI. They have, because I was seeing some conflicting posts whether the shooter was actually the shooter or not, but they do have the suspect in custody, and so we are waiting to get information on that. But I pray for justice, and luckily we do have a president right now who is restoring law and order, who has confronted this, said that this violence has no place in our country, and so I hope we learn from this, that we grow from this, because Charlie Kirk is an American martyr, and we, at this core moment in our life, I pray that we not forget, especially because a lot of us do content creation, are online getting our news these days, that we remain human, that we remember that he has a family, he has kids at home, and to just be spreading positive messaging at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, just about 3 minutes ago, before we started this, it seemed like FBI Director Kash Patel says now that they may not have the person in custody. So there's so much back and forth right now that it's just so hard to try to figure out exactly what's going on at this moment. But yeah, we'll definitely try to continue to keep up on the suspect there. But Cameron, thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. A very difficult day, and thank you again for sharing your thoughts on Charlie, your memories with him, and I'm very sorry for your loss.
Well, thank you. Just continuing to be strong for him and continue this message, and thank you for fighting for our country, Mike. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Cameron. All right, we will take a 2-minute break on Live Now from Fox, everyone. We will be back in just moments with more.
That is just pure race mongering, hate mongering. It's wrong. Then he says that if something like that had happened the other way, there would be sweeping changes imposed on society. Where is the George Floyd Policing Act? It didn't pass. Even when you had a white police officer murder a black man on live television, the whole world saw, there were no sweeping changes. In fact, not one law was passed at the federal level. That we don't know how to deal with people who were hurting in the way this man was hurting. Hurt people. What happened was horrible. Someone like Charlie Kirk, he should be ashamed of himself. No one mentioned the word race, white, black, or anything except him.
Okay. Like 351.
Charlie Kirk to say, we know he did it because she's white, when there's no evidence of that, is just pure race mongering, hate mongering. It's wrong. Then he says that if something like that had happened the other way, there would be sweeping changes imposed on society. Where is the George Floyd Policing Act? It didn't pass. Even when you had a white police officer murder a black man on live television, the whole world saw, there were no sweeping changes. In fact, not one law was passed at the federal level. That we don't know how to deal with people who were hurting in the way this man was hurting. Hurt people. What happened was horrible. Someone like Charlie Kirk, he should be ashamed of himself. No one mentioned the word race, white, black, or anything except him.
Okay, so there's a lot. There's a lot there. First of all, when Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, was asked repeatedly by the media, was there racial animus involved in Derek Chauvin's actions against George Floyd? He said no, and they dodged the question. Do you know that there is no evidence that Derek Chauvin acted racially? If you think Derek Chauvin acted racially, then you're a racist and parting racial type fantasies and mythologies into a situation of which it doesn't exist. Here is the tweet that I sent out. Quote, if a random white person simply walked up to and stabbed a nice law-abiding black person for no reason, it would be an apocalyptically huge national story used to impose national sweeping political changes on the whole country. Of course this is true. Everybody knows this is true. Our media thirsts for stories like this. I want you to imagine if a white guy sitting on a bus and a black woman just on her phone, all of a sudden the white guy took out a knife and just stabbed her in the neck repeatedly. How do you think our media would react? We would have protests. Wendy's would have, boy, I'll tell you right now, there would be 100 burned Wendy's around the world. I mean, in every city. I mean, it would be so on top, they'd start burning the Denny's. They use Emmett Till 70 years later because of this, because it's a case of a horrifying murder of an innocent black person by hateful whites. It's so rare they had to go back 70 years. But you know what? When a white person is murdered, we don't burn down the country. But for the opposite, we have to go back one day. Literally, there was another, several happened this last week. Another white girl was just murdered by a black person in Alabama. A woman butchered walking her dog. There was also one that happened in South Carolina and one that happened in Virginia. That is 4 white women in the American South that just recently were butchered by black criminals. So we take a step back and say, well, what's really going on here? What's really going on here is a situation where Van Jones is acting like if I said something I did not say, when in reality, we're asking a very simple question, Mr. Jones. Very simple question, which is, will you apologize for all the criminal justice reform that you pushed forward that allowed these 14-time criminal offenders to walk the streets? Because you are the architect and the designer of constantly feeling bad for the criminal that then can kill more people like Irina Zarutska. And by the way, I did not bring up race. The attacker said, quote, I got that white girl, end quote. People say, why does the race matter? Oh, it matters because you made us care about race in the summer of 2020. Looks like you got to live up to the book of your own rules. The second that we make you live up to your ridiculous paradigm, you collapse like a house of cards. There is another situation that we should know about. It's Julie Gard Chanel. She was 59 years old. Went to a park, this is in Auburn, Alabama, to walk her dog. And then she got stabbed to death by a guy who stole her car. Let's play cut 353.
Auburn police have made an arrest in the death of former Auburn professor Dr. Julie Chanelli. This update coming just about 5 minutes ago in a press release. Auburn police say they have arrested Harold Rashad Dabney III from Montgomery and have charged him with 2 counts of capital murder in connection to the death of Dr. Chanelli at Kiesel Park.
This is going to be happening every single day, it seems like. So this is a Logan Federico, a 22-year-old aspiring teacher from Waxhaw, North Carolina, was visiting friends. Oh, that's a different one. That's a whole different one. This was in May. That's another white girl that was murdered by another black criminal. So it's just a theme. It's a pattern we're seeing. You can put her up on screen. This was Logan Federico. This one was in May, of a random black criminal that was prowling around and killed another white woman. You guys are starting to see a theme here. You see, the left, they don't like it when I say things like this, but I'm sorry. You guys made the entire country burn and come to a knee, changed the entire fiber and action of the entire civilization all around a lie. We are now going to make you live up to your own rules. We report empirical data. Logan Federico, that was her murderer. And then, of course, in Auburn, the one we were mentioning, the suspect is Harold Rashad Dabney III. We did do an initial search yesterday. It seems like he had a prior of string arrests. We're waiting to confirm that. We were told for years that race-based hate attacks are the worst thing in America. Well, if that's the case, it's pretty clear the most common race-based hate attack is, well, it's not white people killing blacks. It's black people killing white people. And so since it being the worst thing ever, why is it the media doesn't cover it? Well, Will Cain covered this extensively on his program. Will Cain deserves a lot of credit for this. And here are just some of the numbers. Some of the numbers are breathtaking when you go through them. And it's not white people killing blacks. And this is why we support President Trump putting our military in our cities to protect our citizens. And so often these people have prior and prior offenses. It's time to bring back 3 strikes. 3 strikes. By the way, you get all 3 strikes if you just attack a random person on the side of the street. You're done. You're just going to jail for the rest of your life. We're done. We're not playing games with this anymore. Playtime is over. And if you're going to just walk around with weapons without any sort of designation and then commit crimes with those weapons, we're going to put you in jail. By the way, it's just so funny because the Democrats, they pretend to care about black Americans. They don't. Just, interracial violence, crime incidents. Just so you know, there are 117,000 white on black crimes, even though we are a white majority country. And yet there are over 500,000 black on white crimes. Nobody would benefit more than black Americans from a general war on crime in all America. We need an all-out invasion against crime. I want to protect all of the communities in America. So let's just go through this. There are 385,000 black on white violent crime incidents and only 117,000 white on black violent crime incidents. Do you know that 1 in 22 black men will be a murderer in their lifetime? Let me say that again. 1 in 22 black men will be a murderer in their lifetime. That is according to the FBI data. That's verifiable. It's true. You go through the numbers. They're pretty shocking. You go through the numbers and you go into the detail. You kind of walk away and you say, boy, the media's really not been telling me the truth here. Of course not. In Minnesota, blacks are 6.4% of the population, and yet blacks account for 62% of all the violent crime in Minnesota. According to 2021 FBI data, 1 in 22 males, black males, will murder someone at some point in their lifetime. And that's, by the way, that's with most of black crime going unsolved. It's probably even higher than that because half of all black murders go unsolved. Half. The projected lifetime murder rate for a black male is 4,508 per 100,000. By age 23, about half of all black males have been arrested. Let me say that again. By age of 23, half of all black males have been arrested, and not enough of them have been arrested. 385,000, nearly 400,000, 3 times as many blacks are...
Please help us in a moment like this, as we come together to lean on you. I know that you are eternal, and that he's in a much better place with you, Lord, because you are all good.
We are seeing more dedications and remembrances for Charlie Kirk, really all across the country, from Arizona to Alabama. We take you here to the University of Alabama, and again, just some more memories being shared of Charlie Kirk, and we'll continue to bring that to you here on Live Now from Fox. But we continue to bring you some of the people that knew Charlie Kirk, worked with him, and continue to share his thoughts and memories with everyone. I do want to bring in our next guest to help bring in some more memories of Charlie. This is Matt Schlapp, CPAC chairman. Thanks so much, Matt, and I'm sorry that we're meeting under these circumstances. He was a friend of yours, and I'm very sorry of this news.
Yeah, it's devastating, positively tragic. You feel it on a personal level. Everybody knows he was a young man with a brand new family, hadn't been married that long. Beautiful photos and, great example. And then you have this larger context, which is what the hell is going on in our country? What's wrong with our society? Why have we started to hate so much politically? I think, obviously, I don't like what I see coming from the hard left. I don't like this idea that you can't be friends with people who you disagree with politically. I just think as soon as that got entered into the American political context, everything became toxic. You have people who have canceled family reunions because of politics. That never used to happen in America. You have people who in our neighborhood, they do the nastiest things because they don't like my wife's or my politics. This has to end. We have to learn about the golden rule, rediscover it, being a good neighbor. And if we see people in our society who are inappropriate with violence, maybe we need to call the authorities a lot sooner. We just seem to have a lot of very mentally deranged and sick people who are letting politics do them things that is changing the course of history in a very negative way.
Matt, it used to be where if you didn't like someone's message, you just didn't listen to them or you ignored it. Now, when you don't like someone's message, it seems like you got to find out where they are and then want to shoot them from over 200 yards away.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of this violence. If you call someone Hitler or Nazi or someone who hates trans kids or hates Muslim kids, or, this war on women was a rhetoric that Obama used. When you use this incendiary language, you could be encouraging people who are not balanced to do something terrible. And I just think it's a good moment for everybody to take a few steps away from the brink. And I also think we better figure out as a society if we share things in common anymore. And one of those things could be the idea that America was a country that was established with a very wide and broad First Amendment that allowed people to express themselves politically. And I think we need to encourage that. We need to encourage people who disagree with each other to listen to each other. The biggest problem we have right now is we have a news media that shows sides, that shows the left-hand side, the hard left side, and by and large with mainstream media. And, that left people with no place to go to get the truth. And then you have people that are wandering to figure out what's going on. And I would like it if we had some continuity that brought people together. Sports used to do that. They had to even ruin sports with politics, which they're doing less of now, thank God. But these are the things we need to see changes on.
Yeah, especially when you look back at 2020 to like 2022 for sports, it was almost unwatchable because it went so politic driven. Matt, what about your events? Are you worried about the security around your events, the big events that you host? And tell us a little bit about that.
It's always in the back of my head every time we have an event, especially at the big ones. We spend a lot of money on security, so people shouldn't be worried. But with all of these newly sworn in officials, we have a lot of magnetometers at our events. So I think we're taking all the steps we need to. That being said, of course you worry about it. We just live in a society where one person can do tremendous damage, and they seem to be feeding off each other. We had the shooting at the Catholic Church that was, not very long ago. And we had this terrible stabbing in the metro from a guy who had 14 priors and was violent. We're just seeing with rapidity terrible acts of senseless violence. We're a society that's growing accustomed to that. And that's a very dangerous and unacceptable thing. And I think if there's something I'd like to do, we fought very hard on a lot of things that we care about at CPAC, and we've made a lot of Republicans upset at us at times because we've been very strident, and I don't take any of that back. But I would like to, rekindle this idea that somebody who disagrees with me shouldn't feel like I wouldn't be kind to them or that I wouldn't want to talk to them. And Charlie did a good job of making sure people understood that. And I'm going to double down on trying that again. Sometimes you have to put your hand back out even when it's been slapped, or turn the other cheek, as our Savior, our Savior, told us in the good book. These are the types of things we just have to rekindle in our society, else it's going to be too late.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, we're putting people in so many just boxes. We're saying, okay, you're a Democrat or you're just a Republican, but we're forgetting that at the end of the day, these are just human beings too. They have a family. They want to go home at the end of the day, just like everyone else.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And really, you can have disagreement on public policy, but it doesn't mean you hate the person, right? So like somebody could say, look, I think DEI and affirmative action is doing more harm than good. It doesn't make you a racist. You can disagree with some policies coming out of the state of Israel on things, and that doesn't make you anti-Semitic. You can believe that terrorism too often is being sponsored by governments controlled by Muslims, right? That doesn't make you Islamophobic. Like, you know, all of these terms that these people just keep throwing out, and they're very broad and inexact, and all that needs to end as well. You can have political opinions that are unique, no matter what your religion, no matter what your color, no matter what your gender, and I think we just have to listen to what people are saying. And you know, people say things that are over the line, of course, and I think that's inappropriate, especially if it's you know, inciting violence. But beyond that, I think it's a pretty wide swath that you should be able to consider when you're speaking politically. And you know, NPR and PBS telling people like me we can't appear anymore because we're climate deniers, or we're election deniers, or you know, we're science deniers. This idiocy has to stop.
And lastly, Matt, what was Charlie like, you know, when the cameras weren't on, when the microphone wasn't on? What was he just like as a person passing by, and what's he like?
Well, you know, he came to CPAC when he was quite young. It was probably at least 10 years ago, and he had a bunch of younger kids with him. They had red T-shirts on, and they were this group called Turning Point. And I didn't really know what they were, but they were impressive because they were nice, mannerly kids. And Charlie said, I'd like to get these kids up on your stage. And we, of course, said yes, and we thought it was awesome. And, you know, he had an outstanding career and really grew the organization. It's a very impressive organization. It's on college campuses all over the place. They have great conferences. And matter of fact, they asked me to speak at one of their conferences, and one of the young people, maybe they didn't say it's to be too nice, but it's okay. They said, you know, Turning Point's getting to be bigger than CPAC. And I was like, well, if Turning Point gets bigger than CPAC, or CPAC gets bigger than Turning Point, we might just win and take this country back on the principles we care about. So, like, you know, it was a good thing to have another group that was growing and getting big and making a big impact. We need more, we not less. We need more Charlie Kirks, not fewer. And I think Charlie, you know, who was really fun to be around, a great guy. He was like all the great ones. He wasn't that much different behind the camera as he was in front of the camera, and he was very authentic. And I think if you care about Charlie Kirk and his legacy, get in this fight and keep going, keep pushing, and do it in a way where at the end of it all, you can still shake hands and find some commonality.
Yeah, that's so well said. Matt, thanks so much for joining us here tonight on Live Now from Fox, sharing your thoughts and your memories of Charlie. We appreciate it.
Okay, thanks for having me with you.
You take care. All right, we are going to continue right now. Let's go back out to Alabama, where some more students continuing to talk about Charlie Kirk.
On this earth, and he did more in his 31 years than most people do in their entire lifetime. When you look at his movement in Turning Point USA, you see that he woke up a generation. When you look at the numbers, this generation was the most atheist. This generation was viewed to be the most liberal. And Charlie Kirk didn't see it that way. He was told by many, you know, it wasn't even worth it not to try. And he refused to listen to that narrative, and he worked every day, 24/7. He poured into this generation. He woke this generation up. He moved this generation, and now this generation is projected to be one of the most prominently conservative and prominently most religious generations. And that's a true testament to him, and the least that people could do is show up for this and to honor the life of Charlie Kirk, who did so much for this generation.
Have you had a message for people today, whether it's about, you know, remembering his family or carrying on his legacy? If there was one thing that you really wanted people to hear today about his life, what would that be?
The political violence has no place in America. You know, this country was founded on the idea of freedom of speech, and we should all honor that. Charlie Kirk, he died doing what he loved. And should anybody ever die that way? No. but you have to respect the man for all he did and the way he went out. He went out doing what he loved. And, you know, my message to people is that we have to return this country back to God. That's the only answer. The answer isn't Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal. The answer is God. And if you really want to see a change in this country, that's the direction you have to take it. And it can't just be this generation. It has to be all the generations before us and the generations to come.
Is there anything else you wanted to add that I didn't ask you?
You know, don't let this, you know, this is a fear tactic is what this is. And they shut down Charlie Kirk. They want to shut down, they tried to shut down Donald Trump in Butler. They shot Steve Scalise. They've tried to shut down this movement. And that's what this is. This is a movement. You know, their goal, the end be all goal is to shut down the voices of people, conservatives, Christians, and we can't let that be the goal. This cannot scare us. This cannot make us back down. What this has to do is ignite us and make us fight even harder. In the words of Donald Trump, we got to fight, fight, fight.
Thank you so much for your time, Tyler.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Y'all have a blessed one. Roll Tide.
All right, University of Alabama right there. Some more reaction from the students. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us on Live Now from Fox. And really, the big take.
I think that was well said by the young kid. Roll Tide. Shout out to University of Alabama. That's kind of crazy, man, that it happened on school campus, guys. No matter what you think about that man, I mean, that happened in front of a group of college kids at school. So, I mean, shout out to University of Alabama. Shout out to all the universities in America. Shout out to all the teachers and professors that are trying to educate our kids out there. We really, really appreciate y'all. We appreciate y'all. We appreciate y'all. So we're going to keep it going, guys. See what else they got up for us. Here go another kid. Let's go.
The news of Charlie Kirk. What was your initial reaction?
I was sitting down eating lunch, and I don't think I finished that lunch. It's more disbelief than everything. Rushing to check if it's real, rushing to check if it's what the news is. It's disbelief. It didn't really hit me what happened until I stood up there in front of all those people and started trying to talk to them.
And so, I mean, just kind of reflecting on the amount of people that came out to honor his life today. I mean, what do you want to say about that?
It's amazing. It means a lot to not only me, of course, to everyone who helped set this up, to his family, of course. I'm sure they might never hear about this event, but I'd hope it means a lot to them. Even if you disagreed with him, and I disagreed with him on a lot of things, no one deserves to die like that. He had a family, he had kids, no one deserves that. And the people coming out here to show that made you feel good. I don't know how to really put it into words.
What kind of legacy do you think he leaves behind?
Well, he was only 31 years old, and he started a movement that's now a household name in every house in America. He started a movement that will hopefully impact many lives generations from now. You already hear people talking about continuing the fight, and everyone's ready to do it for him.
There was one thing you really wanted people to hear or take away from, because obviously this is kind of the big talk of the day, and this is what people are talking about. What do you want people to take away from this?
I've heard it said 1,000 times today. There's no room for violence, political violence in this country. If you want to win a election, or if you want to win a debate, do it with your words. Don't do it with guns. Don't do it with knives. Don't do it with violence. These people who die, who are killed in these attacks, have families. They're missed by more than just their listeners. They have families, and sorry, it's hard to put into words. There's just no room for violence in this country.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add that I haven't asked?
I'm fine.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. So, I mean, we've...
All right, everyone, you are watching live now from Fox. Again, we appreciate everyone continuing to join us during this break.
Hey, what's up, Chad? I appreciate y'all for rocking with me. We got 222 people in the building. Wow, guys. This is the first time I'm checking on the votes. We got over 2,300 votes. Was Charlie Kirk racist? 75% say no. 25% say yes. This, guys, thank y'all. Over 2,300 votes. This is the most votes we have had on this channel. So I appreciate everybody that participated. I'm gonna let it keep going though. I'm gonna let it go a little bit higher. Let's keep it going.
Their update and saying at the time that they did have someone detained, but unfortunately, that is not true anymore. That person has now been released. So we will keep an eye on this for you right here on Live Now from.
Y'all see that, guys? The person they had in custody has been released.
With a recorded statement on the passing of Charlie Kirk. Let's listen in.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith, and we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven. Our prayers are with his wife, Erica, the two young, beloved children, and his entire family, who he loved more than anything in the world. We ask God to watch over them in this terrible hour of heartache and pain. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace. It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. Tonight, I ask all Americans to commit themselves to the American values for which Charlie Kirk lived and died, the values of free speech, citizenship, the rule of law, and the patriotic devotion and love of God. Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed because together We will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before, and it's not even close. May God bless his memory. May God watch over his family. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
That was recorded just a little bit ago at the White House.
Yeah, guys, what we got to do, man, we got to come together. You know, we can disagree, right? But we got to come together on this channel, in the chat. You know, it's a variety of different, that's what I love about this chat. It's a variety of different people with different beliefs. But we got to come together, guys. We got to come together, and we have to respect one another's opinions, right? So with that being said, man, rest in peace to the guy. Rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. I'm going to end the poll right now. It's over 2,500 people that voted. I thank y'all for voting, all 2,500 people. And was Charlie Kirk racist? 25% says yes. 75% says no. And with that being said, I'm going to end the poll right there. Thank everybody that participated. I thank everybody that's been coming to the channel. I thank everybody that's been rocking with us. I thank the chat, everybody that's been coming. You know, we got a variety of different type of people with different type of beliefs. And I appreciate y'all for coming. I appreciate y'all for rocking with me. With that being said, rest in peace of Charlie Kirk. And with that being said, that's it, guys. I love and I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great night. Stay safe. To the next one, I'm out.